why I decided to create a speech for her. And she's a true champion of animals and mother of nature. Firstly, I want to let everyone to hear a sound. Yes, it's nothing. But actually, it's the sound of the chimpanzee. So it's very unique because probably you will not recognize the sound by yourself right away. And this is what has led her life to before meaning, and I will share more about it. And today in this speech, I would like to share the agenda first. I will introduce who she is and what's the beginning of her journey from childhood, and what's her groundbreaking discoveries, and her legacies. Finally, I will share some takeaways by myself. Firstly, as you can see, she was born in Great Britain in 1934, and she passed away in Los Angeles, US this year. So her life lasts 91 years. It's such an extraordinary life. And she becomes the top and one of the first female researcher in this field from 1960s. And let's take a look at what happened when she was a kid. She actually got a tool, which is a stuffed chimpanzee from her dad when she was only one. What a coincidence. And she named her as Judith. And that started her journey with this animal. And when she was in her 20s, it was 1960, she moved to the Gombe National Park on the west border of Tanzania. And that's where her journey of the research starts. And what did she do there? So firstly, at that time, there was barely any female researcher, and she had zero training in that field. But what she did was, because she raised the love of animals, instead of getting a job, she just moved to a farm in the area first in 1957. And then it's a farm of her friend. And then she got the first job as secretary, then be introduced to a scientist and researcher in that field. And that guy support her to get full training in college. And she actually started her study in Cambridge without college degree. And she actually started a doctorate degree training, and she got her bachelor degree during that in Cambridge. So it's a very unique path. And that gives us some good ideas about we don't always have to be ready, we don't have to always get a degree to do something, but if we show our passion, show interest, put ourselves there, that could be the beginning of the path. And then what did she do exactly there? It's very amazing that she apart herself from the convention by naming animals in her studies instead of just put numbers as labels on the animals, because that has been the long-term tradition at that time. Because people think by using that, we could remove the emotion part and be more objective. However, in this study, because she literally lived there for decades, become neighbors of the animals, and she built such a close relationship with them, and they could be her family. And she was able to observe and gain all the findings. So during that day, there were two long-standing beliefs. First one is only human can contrast and use tools. Secondly, they thought chimps were vegetarian. However, by her study, she found out neither of those were true. And best example is with her close observation, she found out they can not only use a tool, but they can also make the tools. For example, this is a big example. They are using the branches to put into the ants' nest and to dig them to take them out. And by the way they make this tool is they actively remove the leaves, so to be able to achieve this goal. Secondly, we thought they never eat animals, but then she found out they actually not only eat animals, they actually eat monkeys, which is pretty big animal compared to chicken size, right? So it's kind of surprised, oh my God, and they are kind of close to each other, right? It's kind of bizarre, but that's also very, so her findings as such a result brought scientific reward and forever changing the way we look our closest relatives as well as ourselves. So let's take a look at what are the legacies she has left us. The first one is called Jane Goodall Institute. It was founded in 1977. It has been one of the top and the biggest research institution in the world in this field since then. So it has been supporting the good research in the last 50 years. And also the second one is called Roots and Shoots. This one focuses on young education. It has been there for over 30 years. It has, the scale of it is over 10,000 clubs, over 100 countries. So it actually supports all the teenagers and kids to learn better about wild animals, environment, and how we can do better about them. Last but not the least, she has been a pioneer and in the gender equality in the job market, and we have talked about it earlier. She was one of the so few scientists in the field in the 60s, and over the last 60 years, this field has become gender equal. So that's a long-term achievement. Now let's take a look at a few takeaways. So firstly is she treats herself with sheep as neighbors, not only observers. Because that's the way she can build such a tight relationship, be able to learn so much about them, which nobody else has done before. I think that applies to nowadays life, right? Because nowadays it's so chaotic and we have all different opinions, but the way we can learn from each other is really sit down, be close to each other, and listen, observe each other for long term. That's how we can truly understand each other before we get to conflicts, right? Secondly, we all know she has such a good heart to really name each animal and treat them family instead of just treat them as a scientific object. And thirdly, it's so important that we really need to take the chance by just going to the environment. Like what she did, just go to Africa without a plan and then take the chance there. I think that's so important. And it's the same thing as what I did after I graduated. I went to California to look for jobs. After I graduated from Kentucky, which is also, I had no idea, but that gave me a lot of opportunities. And fourthly, live the fullest life to the last day, because she literally worked until the end of her life. She was on a tour of public speech, still in the last 2 weeks. And last but not the least is there are so many long-standing beliefs deeply in our heart, which could be wrong. So that's why it's so important to keep our eyes, keep our minds open to be able to change our mind. That's my speech. Thank you.